to Brussels, where they were met with protests, to South Africa, where they didn't meet opponents. So here at the UN, who are they going to meet with?
My understanding is that they will meet with the Deputy Secretary General.
Do you know what day?
No, we can find out.
Will it be on her schedule, and is there some way to either get a readout?
We'll see what it'll be. I mean, there's no. Well,
she's done some photo ops.
Clearly, if I'm saying it, if I'm confirming it publicly,
okay.
It'll be on her schedule, and we'll see what comes out of the meeting.
Can it be a photo op as well?
We'll see what comes out. Yep.
Thanks, Steph. Over the weekend, Israel's communications minister announced that he'd be taking steps to close Al Jazeera's offices in Israel. I'm wondering if the Secretary General has any reaction to that and its implications or potential implications for press freedom in the country and in the region.
We are obviously aware. We're following the situation closely, both from here and our colleagues on the ground. My reading of the situation, that there are a number of steps that are being taken. There may have been political statements, so I'm not going to comment any further on it, but just to say that our position of principle is obviously in favor of freedom of expression and freedom of the press and their ability to work and report. Yes, sir. And then Mr. Klein, then Edie.
Thanks. The U.S. Secretary of State said today Washington was open to direct talks with North Korea with some pretty serious conditions. I'm curious if the SG would see direct talks as a positive development and if you'd lend any help to that effort.
Yeah, as a matter of principle, we would obviously support direct talks between any parties. I think we've seen different messages come out of the ASEAN of the meetings in Manila. I think the resolution that was passed sends a clear message to the DPRK from the Security Council. The Secretary General, for him, it's important that the DPRK abide by the resolution and allow for space for resumption of dialogue. And Secretary General also calls on all member states to support and implement the resolution. Joe.
Yeah, with respect to the resolution, I believe one of the elements is to prohibit member states from admitting any more North Korean workers into their countries in order to prevent remittances going back to North Korea and adding to their hard currency reserves. I'm wondering if you can confirm whether the Secretariat, the UN Secretariat, will abide by that. And I have in mind, I think something you've been asked about previously by Matthew and maybe others regarding this junior professionals program and the placing of one or more North Korean staffers into the Department of Public Affairs. Is that going to continue? And if so, how can it be reconciled with the spirit of the resolution that was just passed?
I think we are fully aware of the Security Council resolutions. I'm not sure we can create a link between the two, but let me see what else I can find out before I answer any further.
Well, I mean,
I understand
the logical link being that
I understand what you're trying to say. I just will not say anything more at this point. I think for the Secretary General, I think it's also important to note that the resolution and the Security Council reiterate their commitment to a peaceful and diplomatic and political situation, I think to go back to Luke's question, he's obviously reaffirms his commitment to do whatever he can to help diffuse the situation. Yes, Edie.
Steph, does the Secretary General have any comment on the latest developments in Venezuela, prospect of new opposition protests, the new Constituent Assembly making...
No, I don't have anything at this time. I hope to have something a bit later today. Yes, sir.
Just a clarification whether you've made any announcement about the SG visit to the Middle East and...
I did not. You did not miss anything.
And is there anything that you can tell us about this visit?
No, because I haven't announced anything. Yes, Nizar.
Yeah, recent reports speak about more attacks against Syrian civilians in northern Syria with use of white phosphorus, as this has been repeated. What is the position of
I've seen the press reports. Obviously, if attacks using white phosphorus were to have occurred, they were to be condemned. But I will see from my colleagues on the ground if we have any more information. Mr. Lee.
Sure. I wanted on I think what you said about Kenya, I wanted to ask you specifically about these reported abductions and deportations of consultants working for Raila Odinga by the Kenyatta government. Is the UN system aware of them? What do they think of the idea that people working on the campaign of of this candidate could be thrown out of the country?
Look, I think in general terms for this election, the respect for freedom of association, opinion, and expression are critical elements to have an electoral process that has integrity. We'll continue to monitor the respect for civic and media space throughout the elections.
So this is a bad thing?
As I said, I think in general and in general terms, we need to have a space for civic engagement, for civil society, and for the media. Take your call and come back to us. Yes, Nizar.
Earlier, you explained about refueling in Sana'a airport, and that they are resuming supply of fuel.
Yeah, we expect the fuel to resume.
I mean, this lapse of time, I mean.
Hello everyone, Tamia here. I just wanted to say hello. You guys are looking at a live feed of the United Nations. It's the daily press briefing there in New York City. So we are just going to go ahead and show you guys this. This is happening right now.
That we've had to deal with. We've had critical challenges of humanitarian access throughout the conflict areas in Yemen, regardless of who was controlling what part. And as we've said, we have seen a wanton disregard by the various warring parties for the well-being of civilians.
You talk about wanton disregard, but here, I mean, the attacks are from the air. It's known that the coalition is carrying out these attacks, especially the one in Sada, with so many victims, obliteration of whole areas sometimes, on markets. Does the Secretary General call for an investigation into such crimes?
Of course, all attacks on civilians need to be investigated. Luke?
On Yemen also, I've looked up the WHO funding status. Looks like the appeal has gone from 15% fulfilled in June to 75% now, which is a big jump. Does the UN see that as a positive development, that this is getting the attention it needs? And would you attribute anything to that increase?
You know, obviously, the more humanitarian appeals are funded, the better it is for the people of Yemen, for the beneficiaries. I think for the WHO, you need to contact them on the exact numbers and what they would attribute it to. Our overall humanitarian response plan for Yemen has now received more than $900 million, or 44% of the $2.1 billion we need. And so far this year, the numbers I've been given is that our humanitarian partners have reached 5.9 million people with humanitarian and protection assistance. An average of 4 million people every month are receiving continuous food assistance. Yep. Matthew and then Nizar.
Sure. Sorry for the phone sound. It's a big Periscope day down at the courthouse, and that's actually what I want to ask you about. In the course of a hearing on Mr. Englap saying convicted for UN-related briberies, continued house arrest rather than jail, it emerged that there have been many more than certainly the judge, or definitely the prosecution knew, visitors to his apartment during this time. And I wanted to know, can you say whether during the time of the trial, and particularly since the convictions 10 days ago, have there been UN individuals, to your knowledge, can you check, I guess with OLA, whether they have in fact visited this? There's apparently been a masseuse there for 4 to 10 hours a day.
Well, I can tell you that we don't employ masseuses.
I understand.
Or masseur or masseuse.
Sure. They also cook.
We're not in the business of monitoring who goes into people's homes, whether they work for the UN or not. So there is no way for me to answer your question.
I'm asking about contacts between UN people and Mr. Englap saying.
I'm not aware of any contacts.
in Saudi Arabia, for many weeks now, the attacks continue unabated against Al-Awamiyya and other places in Qatif. Has the United Nations been able to access the area or just have any position on what's happening there? So whole areas have been destroyed.
I'm not aware that we've been able to access. Thank you.
Do you intend?
I'll see what we have. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So we're just sorting out some technical difficulties right here. It's an exciting Monday, just another Monday here on News Now. You guys are checking out the News Now set. I don't know, lower third, I took it off the screen, but we do have some more news updates right now. We are learning some updates regarding that sinkhole in Florida. We'll give you guys those updates and more here on News Now in just a little bit. In the meantime, though, I do want to go ahead and show you guys this video of a water rescue. It was pretty interesting. This just took place not too long ago out of San Antonio, Texas. This water rescue here out of San Antonio, Texas. Lots of flooding here. I want you guys to just sit back and watch this video. Quite a scene from just moments ago. All right, everyone. So you were watching this video of a water rescue from earlier. Also happening today were some other big events here on News Now. Just want to go ahead and show you guys some video from earlier today of a World War II veteran event at the World War II Memorial, the National Mall. I'll go ahead and pull this up for you now. World War II event from earlier.
More than 7,000 killed during the Battle of Guadalcanal. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time it's our privilege to introduce the Ambassador who?
It's a great honor to be here today to celebrate the commemoration of in remembrance of the 60,000 allies who were killed during the Battle of Guadalcanal. I wish everyone all the best for today, and God bless everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. At this time, we have retired Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Ron Campbell, whose father participated in the Battle of Guadalcanal, and he'll give some brief remarks.
Good afternoon, honored guests, veterans and their families. My father, Colonel William R. Soupy Campbell, was a captain on the Espiritu Santo flying F-4Fs. He was called by his commanding officer because he had experience marking the beaches. And he was sent up to the Quincy, which was a heavy cruiser, and he was catapulted off of that cruiser in the back seat of an SO-2U, and they marked the beaches with their smoke bombs. When they landed back aboard, they actually landed in the water, and the Quincy hoisted the aircraft up onto the catapults. About 3 days later, the Battle of Savo Island took place. Soupy was in that battle, but he managed to escape, had a swim call, and a Navy destroyer picked him up. And he was eventually returned to his squadron in the Espiritu Santo. Code name was Button. Code name of Guadalcanal was Cactus. He participated in the war until November. He led a flight of F-4Fs, and General George Dooley led a torpedo bombers, and they were attacking the High E battleship. And they crippled the battleship until it turned in circles, and the Navy eventually sunk the battleship. And then Soupy was recalled to the United States. He served 27 years in the Marines, retiring as the CEO of Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii, and he lived on the Big Island until his death in the year 2000. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Campbell. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will present the wreaths in honor of all those who served, and especially those who gave the ultimate sacrifice during the Battle of Guadalcanal. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have our wreath presentations. Representing the Friends of the National World War II Memorial in the United States of America is retired Army Major General John Hurling and retired Marine Colonel Lieutenant Colonel Ron Campbell. Representing the Allied nation of Australia, Air Vice Marshal Alan Clements, head of the Australian Defence Staff Defence Attaché, Embassy of Australia. Representing the Allied nation of New Zealand, Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Pitt, Military Attaché, Embassy of New Zealand. Representing the Allied nation of Tonga, His Excellency, Mr. Maui Tapanuea, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the Permanent Mission of the Kingdom of Tonga to the United Nations. And finally, representing the Allied nation of the United Kingdom is Major Andrew Echard, Royal Marines, British Naval Staff, British Embassy. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please render appropriate honors as we remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice by the playing of taps.
Hello, Ron. How are you?
Hi, Samia. Just great.
All right, so we were just watching this event from the World War II Memorial, and we just wanted to cut in and say hello to all of our viewers out there.
Yeah, so as we were talking about just in the last few minutes, this is Fox 10 Extra, a new way for you to watch the news that continues to stream after 10 o'clock when we go off the air with regular Fox 10 News.
Right.
So for people who aren't familiar with it, in the past you've been able to get to us on your phone if you have the Fox 10 Phoenix app, or you've been able to get to us on your computer just at fox10phoenix.com. Now you have this third option, which literally you can watch us on Fox 10 Extra, which is what we used to call My 45, cable channel 9. And I like the juxtaposition, 10 to 9. It's easy. It's one quick hit on the remote control and you're there. But the beauty of what we do out here is to just continually roll, thanks to our sources, with Fox. Every few minutes, doesn't it seem like we hear something new from Fox New York? Okay, stations, stand by. We got a live feed here or there. We're able to take it all to you unvarnished, and at the same time talk about the stories that really are generating most of the talk and most of the interest online.
Right. And speaking of the stories that are getting a lot of traction online, I do want to talk about Trump versus Blumenthal. Now, this is a story that I found quite interesting because, the president, he is technically on vacation.
Although he sent out a tweet that said, I'm going to take a lot of meetings, there's going to be phone calls. What he didn't mention, Samia, was that
he was not taking a vacation from tweeting.
Oh, he would fire up a tweet storm. Now, this is fascinating.
Right.
So there you see on the screen, Richard Blumenthal, he's a fairly prominent senator from New England, and President Trump. Now, there's been a lot of thought that ever since retired General John Kelly took over at the White House, that he has insisted upon discipline that has cut through all the various aspects of White House operation. But maybe in a compromise with the president has for the most part been fairly quiet on Twitter, knowing that he's got his chief of staff right down the hall. Well, now it's vacation time. The president's in New Jersey, and we don't know how much time General Kelly is going to be spending with him there in New Jersey, but he got up and just fired off a tweet storm in the last, maybe 5 or 6 hours that has everybody talking.
Right. It's a very Trump thing to do, to say the least.
Yeah. So, a lot of folks, I actually remember hearing some commentators this morning saying, well, you're going to be pretty quiet, it looks like, for the next 17 days. No, not once the president gets on Twitter. And so we can talk about some of his other tweets in a minute. But first, let's just talk about what he had to say about this rather prominent member, a Democrat, prominent member of the United States Senate.
So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just pull up President Trump's tweets, because that's the best way to show the viewers.
Yeah.
Let's just pull up real Donald Trump's Twitter handle, if you don't follow him already, which I'd be surprised if you're a viewer that didn't, because...
He has 110 million, right? He said that on social.
Well, total in
That's
all of his
platforms.
social media reach.
Yes,
in
right,
his actual, at real Donald Trump account, he has 35.3 million.
Yeah.
And even if you don't follow him on Twitter, you follow someone that follows him and will probably retweet something crazy that he said.
Sure.
So...
and as much as his critics do talk about the fact that he needs to, quote, get off Twitter, you see a lot of other members of both the House and the Senate who do put their own tweets out all the time.
Well, I wonder if more people are using Twitter because they're following the president's example.
It's a great way to get the message out. Like it or don't like it. He does get the message out. And literally, he didn't have to call a news conference this morning.
No.
He didn't have, as far as we know, he just rolled out of bed and started thinking about the things that were on his mind and started sending the tweets. It's so much simpler than gathering the news media together for a big news conference. But in terms of what he actually said through some of his tweets this morning.
All right, so the first one coming out says a failing New York Times, which has made every wrong prediction about me, including my big election win, apologized, is totally inept. The Trump base is far bigger and stronger than ever before, despite some phony fake news polling. Look at the rallies in Pennsylvania, Iowa, Ohio, and West Virginia. The fact is, the fake news Russian collusion story, record stock market, border security, military strength, jobs, Supreme Court pick, economic enthusiasm, deregulation, and so much more have driven the Trump base even closer together. Will never change. Hard to believe that with 24/7 fake news on CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, New York Times, and Washington Post, the Trump base is getting stronger.
I thought he called the Washington Post the Amazon Washington Post.
Well, not in this tweet, at least.
I guess he didn't have room for 140 characters. Okay, so
we still have more, though. We are getting up to the Blumenthal ones.
Yeah.
So he continues, working hard from Jersey while White House goes through long-planned renovation, going to New York next week for more meetings. Now, he's talking about Senator Blumenthal, saying, interesting to watch Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut talking about hoax Russian collusion when he was a phony Vietnam con artist.
A phony Vietnam con artist.
So let's continue. Never in U.S. history has anyone lied or defrauded voters like Senator Richard Blumenthal. He told stories about his Vietnam battles and conquests, how brave he was, and it was all a lie. He cried like a baby and begged for forgiveness like a child. Now he judges collusion. All right. Well, wow.
Yeah.
Ron, what's your take on all that?
Well, I do think...
Hold on, let's rewind real quick.
Okay.
Viewers out there reading these tweets, they don't understand what Trump is talking about.
Okay, so Blumenthal used to appear regularly until he kind of got caught at this. Used to appear regularly at events where we would talk about his service in Vietnam. You know, that he served... I found a quote here somewhere from, this was several years ago. He was speaking to a group where he said, "We have learned something important since the days that I served in Vietnam." The problem is he never served in Vietnam. He, in fact, got military deferment after military deferment, and I mean, it's impossible to read his mind, but if you literally just look at the record, it looks like he was doing everything humanly possible
to
avoid going to Vietnam and actually having to serve. So he got all these different deferments. And eventually, he landed a deferment with the Marine Reserve, which, you know, may have given him a big sigh of relief, because at that point it looked like there was no way he was going to actually have to go serve in Vietnam. So he does have that connection to the military through the Marine Reserve, but all these years of telling stories about, quote, my time in Vietnam is something that he really got himself in trouble
What
for.
years did he tell these stories? When was he finally caught? I mean, how long?
Yeah. Well, I got a lot of numbers kind of rolling around in my
Give me
head
a
here, but,
vague, roughly
he was
when.
still telling these stories as most recently as within the past decade. I think that quote that I just gave you was 2008. I'm not sure if he was actually running for office that year or not, but
and then President Trump alleges that he cried like a baby and begged for forgiveness like a child.
Yeah. Well, because it was actually, in that instance, it was the media that called him out, because somebody decided to actually take a look at his, quote, military record to see whether or not he actually served. Now, I do believe part of what's poignant about this today is the fact that what were we just watching up until 5 minutes ago on our streaming service? Real veterans who actually fought
World War
in
II, yeah.
the field of conflict at Guadalcanal, one of the bloodiest, deadliest battles, you know, that we have literally seen in generations and generations. So here's Blumenthal, who, if I am right about this, he actually, I think he actually was able to kind of continue his studies at Harvard for a while and do some other things. So anyway, there was some duplicity there, and President Trump has decided to call him out on it, because I think also at the same time, Blumenthal and others on the Democratic side of the aisle, he feels, have really been thwarting what he's trying to do in terms of shaking things up in Washington.
Right. So Senator Blumenthal also earlier today held a press conference regarding, let me get it right here for you so I don't mess up exactly what he spoke about.
Okay.
Senator Blumenthal discussing a bill to stop the president from firing the special counsel. So Blumenthal wants to introduce a bill that would prevent President Trump from getting rid of Mueller regarding the Russian investigation. Now, you know, there are people, though, even on the Republican side, that, you know, are concerned about Russian collusion, whether it happened or not.
Absolutely.
It's not really a Trump issue to them.
Right.
It's more about just Russian intervention because, you know, the traditional Republican out there is not a fan of Russia.
Oh, even inside the administration, you have the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, just in the last few hours saying, he's at this big summit over in the Philippines, and he said, look, what the Russians did with their meddling in our election, that's what has brought us to this low point in our relations. So it is, you're right, it is absolutely not just a Democrat issue. There are plenty of Republicans. It sounds to me just about everybody on Capitol Hill wants to get to the bottom of it.
Right.
And so,
because the thing is, let's just say hypothetically that the Russians did, you know, get very involved in our election situation, then, you know, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you should be concerned because maybe your party is the victor this time around, but that might not be the case the next time around. And either way, we should just be in favor of making sure that democracy is working the way it's supposed to.
Right. So the question, of course, is, so why did Donald Trump, why did the president go after Blumenthal so hard this morning in multiple tweets? You know, we were talking about it before we actually went on here at 10, and it's possible that it's complete coincidence, but I doubt it.
Right.
I mean, the very morning that Blumenthal is going to basically lead the charge for this effort on what is supposed to be a pretty quiet 17-day period now in Washington, that could drive the story for the next couple of days. So whether it was coincidence or not, the simple fact that he decides, that the president decides, I'm going to get this thought out there, and just kind of undermine some of the credibility that he has. But honestly, I think part of it is maybe analysis of where do we stand today in the political spectrum, but I also think part of it is he really liked running for president. And I mean, think about some of these other candidates that he used to run against. I think that was one of his favorite times in the whole political sphere. Because he used to call Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts, Pocahontas.
Right. He still does sometimes as president.
Though we had one of the Republican debates where Rand Paul was all the way down at the end podium, and he said, what's he even doing up here on the stage? He's at 1% when I'm at 41%. It's just part of who he is. He likes
the competition.
He likes the competition. He likes the fight. And I think this is probably why we're seeing this fight with Blumenthal today. Now, the interesting thing is, you actually rolled on what Blumenthal had to say just a little while ago.
I did. I want to see if it's in the system yet. So sometimes our video takes a while to get into the system. So I'm not sure if I actually have that Blumenthal clip in quite yet. Yeah. But let me see if I can find it.
So at some point over the course of the morning, for those of you who are watching us on TV for the first time, the beauty of what we do is every time there's a live event that comes in, boom, we can take it to you. A little while ago, we were watching what was unfolding in San Antonio with this crazy-looking rescue out of floodwaters, which was happening live. We're going to take you there live. In the meantime, say something happens hours ago before you're even up, and all you get is a 10-second clip on like a traditional news service or a traditional news source. We can literally roll, and with what we have here with the ability to expand our news coverage, we can show you a whole 10 or 15 minute news conference, whether it's the opening statement or like the Q&A, the give and take. Yeah, so you get all that.
That's right, Ron. You do get all of that here on News Now.
So
I actually did find that clip, by the way.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Okay, so
I'm going to play that for our viewers in just a moment. So it's actually a clip of Senator Blumenthal holding a press conference, the one I was just talking about. Blumenthal discussing the bill to stop the president from firing the special counsel. So we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Okay.
But I did want to go to another topic really quickly that you and I really were interested in talking about. Let me just update our lower third here on the screen.
Okay.
You know, right now it says President versus Senator. Let's just go with this one, Samia Khan and Ron Hoon. It really just encompasses what we do up here.
There you go.
Because I'm Samia Khan and you're Ron Hoon.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about today's top story. So in the corner of your screen, you still see that photo of President Trump and Senator Blumenthal. But you know what? I am going to change that image. I'm going to change it now to a
Just
different
like you guys
image.
at home, I can't wait to see where we're going with this. What's in Samia's?
What's in my arsenal? Well, lo and behold.
Oh, yeah.
This was a story that you brought up with me, and this is quite controversial.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Okay, so here's an industry, I believe, okay, I'm going to have to do this off the top of my head. I don't have notes right in front of me on this, but I believe that Google is... it's either Google or the tech industry there in Silicon Valley is 69% male. So it's like a 70-30 ratio. And there have been a lot of concerns expressed that there needs to be more diversity within kind of within the tech industry.
Right.
You know, whether it's working on code or whether it's unveiling new apps or whether it's everything kind of from software to virtual reality. How come it's so much of the dudes, right? How come it's
Lots
so
of
many
dudes.
guys?
Lots of dudes in the tech world. But you know what? I mean, a lot of them are the ones choosing to go into the engineering field.
Okay.
The whole Bay Area in general. It's a great, if you're looking if you're a woman looking to date, I will say that there's a good ratio there up in San Francisco. So again, for those of you that are just joining us, we are looking at these pictures of Google. That is where all of these, allegations are taking place because of this internal memo regarding this notion that should women really be in the tech space?
Well, it's interesting because they have a fairly new, it's not just an HR person at Google at their corporate headquarters. She's in charge of, I believe it's the Office of Diversity and Governance, something along those lines. And she's already been out with a statement saying, while we embrace a culture where people are free to speak their minds, what was stated is something that we as a company wholeheartedly do not agree with.
Right, right.
And what will be the fallout? I mean, will the fallout be that the company will now that the bright glare of the spotlight is on them this morning, will the fallout be that they actually try to engage more with future employees and try to work on that balance of 70% men, only 30% women?
But I mean, what, to get to a 50-50 ratio?
I don't know.
The thing is my argument is a 50-50 ratio realistic if 50% of the women aren't actually interested in that field?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could go to another field, let's say PR or something, and I don't know the facts or statistics, but I would imagine that it's a more female-dominated industry.
It does seem like it,
So while I understand the importance of diversity, it really comes down to being proportional to the number of people that are interested in that realm. I think that's the best way to accurately reflect society if that's what you're going for.
Yeah, well, this whole 10-page memo that he put out is out there online, and you can read it. But his basic argument that the reason that we don't have more women working in this field has nothing to do with sexism. It has to do with, then he basically goes into all of his thinking on why women aren't as qualified.
See, that's where it gets messed up.
It is really going to hit people the wrong way.
Right.
I'm just saying that's the story this morning. Let's wait to see what the story is in the coming days and weeks.
In the meantime,
mark my words.
If you're offended, use Yahoo to do your searching online.
And if you are,
or Bing, or any other search engine.
And if you think it would be better for all industries to have a more equal split, let's just watch and see how the company responds over the next few months.
Yeah, indeed, Ron. So this was an interesting talker. I'm glad we talked about it. I do want to get to some pictures from earlier, though. So viewers may have missed these pictures from earlier today. Just go ahead and cue these up for you. This is video of some flooding from San Antonio earlier, and I just want to recap some of what we saw. This was a water rescue from moments ago, and we are getting some updates regarding this information in relation to the San Antonio flooding. Now, crews raced to rescue a man there trapped in rushing floodwaters in San Antonio in the last hour. Video showed the man trapped on top of a vehicle. You can see that there.
Yeah, you got the rescuer and you got him up there as well. Man, this is tense.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, literally, he is just wedged in there with the floodwaters basically up to his windshield.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's fascinating about that picture? Look at the passenger side rear door. There is water going into the car and streaming out of the car.
Really good observation, Ron. Yeah,
How often do you see something like that going on?
I mean, these waters are crazy. And so, again, you can see emergency rescue crews worked to reach the man. They were able to pull him to safety. He was taken to the hospital to be checked out. But just a heads up for those of you maybe in the area or maybe you have loved ones in the area, a flash flood warning in that county had been extended until 12:15 today. So it looks like that flash flood warning technically maybe just expired a few minutes ago there in San Antonio. But again, keep in mind, heavy rain, heavy thunderstorms continuing to roll through San Antonio today. Up to 5 inches of rain have hit isolated pockets of Bexar County with widespread rain amounts of more than 2 inches since the storm hit the downtown area around 7 this morning.
Sorry I was oohing and ahhing, Samia, while you were talking about all that, because we actually literally saw both the rescuer and the victim, let's say the flood victim,
right,
who probably never should have driven in there in the first place, honestly, crawling across the ladder extension until they got onto the larger extended ladder that we see as part of the fire truck itself.
Right.
That was wild.
So crazy. So again, I mean, just in general, you're just seeing all sorts of crazy rain-related destruction.
Yes.
You know, not only, I mean, we're looking at these pictures from San Antonio, Texas, but I understand that there was some pretty crazy rain here last week too, Ron.
Oh my gosh,
I was
on
out of
Thursday-
town,
on
yeah,
Thursday
and I
night.
just got so many push alerts
Yes.
from my Fox 10 weather app that kept warning me about the flash flood warnings that were issued in my area, and I'm sitting in New York. I'm like, I guess I picked the right time to leave town.
Yeah, that's for sure. But now here's a little sort of inside. I'm no meteorologist, but here's a little bit of an inside tip in terms of our weather coverage nationally. When we see something big hit here in the Southwest, we all know that the weather systems in our country basically move from a West Coast to an East Coast nature. That's just the overall flow. And so when we see really bad storm activity here in Arizona,
Right.
where we're based, don't be shocked if you see equally bad weather activity as the system moves across the country, right? So it left here, and the next thing you know, I believe I saw that there were multiple reporting stations in the greater San Antonio area that were recording 5 inches of rain in the last few hours.
Insane.
Yeah, it is insane. I mean, you can't deal with that kind of moisture without it literally starting to impact your roads and your creeks and everything else.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the pictures on the screen of that flooding there in San Antonio. We will actually be getting some graphics of the situation in San Antonio in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up this video once again of that water rescue. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can pull up those graphics for our viewers here on News Now.
Okay. So you're looking at the pic right here. This is right after the rescue happened, and everything is calmed down. But boy, literally within a minute or two before that. So here's the thing. Downtown San Antonio had, I believe I saw 2 inches of rain. You had some of these outlying areas, like Leon Valley and some others a little bit outside of San Antonio where they had the 5 inches. Even right in the heart of the city, right downtown in the business district and where the Riverwalk is, I mean, they were talking about a good 2 inches of rain right there. And take a look here at the weather graphics.
I know. It is so crazy to look at the radar that we have on the screen right now of what's happening there in the San Antonio area. I mean, when you see red, you know that's not a good sign.
Right. The thing about this system is, like you said, Samia, they are not out of the woods just yet. They've extended, they had earlier in the morning extended some of the storm warnings as a result of what was going on there earlier in the day. But this is weird because it stretches straight up to Austin. It's like it literally goes right up the freeway to Austin. Then it kind of breaks up a little bit, and then look at the last image there. Boom, now it's hitting Houston.
Right.
So we're getting this literally from our Fox Vision partners with AccuWeather, showing you exactly what is going on out there in Texas. So don't be surprised by the end of the day, or even in the next few hours, if we're starting to report on potential problems in the Houston area.
Right. You can see there on the right-hand portion of your screen that Houston also being affected by this rain. You're also seeing the red part of radar hitting the Houston area. Again, even when it gets into that dark green, I know from my experience here in Arizona, even dark green feels like it's pretty heavy rain. So when it gets to the yellow and then the orange and red, I mean, red is really severe.
It is. So I'll just tell you, since you were out of town on Thursday night, it was the beginning of the football season, right? So the very first preseason game was being played involving the Arizona Cardinals. And we had family over at my place. I'm trying to get my dad to like step away from the football game to actually come look outside the window at the unbelievable weather that we were dealing with. It was not coming down sideways. But Samia, the rain truly was coming down at a 45-degree angle.
That's crazy.
It is insane. I thought you were going to say insane. You went with crazy, but I thought maybe you were going to say insane. It was. I mean, I've lived here over 35 years, and it was one of the most intense rainstorms that I have seen in any monsoon. So we're in for some wild weather. It looks
Yeah,
like,
you know,
over the course of the summer.
I saw some article online. Let me just go ahead and pull this up once again. I saw some article online about. Sorry, I'm just getting this board figured out. About how we're having fewer monsoon storms this season, but much more intense monsoon storms. You know, I think the headline was climate change affecting monsoon storms in Arizona. I don't remember. I saw it on Twitter sometime over the weekend. But the picture that they used was just this intense graphic of this crazy dust storm. And it seems like the storms that we have experienced over the last month have been very intense. I still remember the one a few weeks ago where, I mean, it woke me up and it kept me up all night. And it was just so, like you mentioned, that like rain that comes down at a 45-degree angle, that was very similar that night 3 weeks ago.
So if you're not familiar with Arizona, we have this massive monolithic structure called the Mogollon Rim that is 7,000 to 8,000 feet in elevation, and we sit down here in the desert, only about 90 miles away, at about 1,000 feet in elevation. Well, when these storm systems come up with all that moisture from the Gulf of Mexico in the middle of the monsoon, they hit that rim and they just dump. And we have just a tragic story here where an entire family, the mom, the dad, the kids, were swept away on a birthday weekend where a lot of family members had gotten together. And it was all the result of flash floods that can literally hit you in an instant.
Right. I mean, that story became a national story. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was covering it because it was so tragic. So many people lost their lives, all part of the same family. And it was just a very sad scenario. I understand there was some flooding or interesting video that came out of Mayer, Arizona, as well. I was actually in New York visiting with a friend who works at one of the local stations there, and he was actually, oh, you got some news out of Arizona.
Yeah, well, it's the fire, and it's the rain, and we have literally, in an area like ours, which is so mountainous, and I know it surprises a lot of people. They think Arizona's just, if they've never been, they think we're all like sand dunes.
They're like, what, you guys get rain?
Yeah.
The desert?
The desert is actually very lush, and you get up into the mountains, and it's extremely mountainous up there. I mean, you've got, like I said, you get up to the rim, and you're at 7,000 to 8,000 feet. And when that moisture hits and it doesn't have a lot of places to go, especially if it's hit in an area where we just had a big fire, which we've had a couple of sizable fires, that's what played a role in this horrific scene that I was describing of the family that got swept away.
Yeah.
There had been a fire in that area.
Right.
And then out in the Mayer area, also north, but not to the northeast, more to the northwest of the Phoenix metro. That's another area that got hit by a fire.
Right.
And so you have all that vegetation that burns off, and it's just like
Makes it prone to mudslides.
Black
makes it prone to
soil.
Yeah.
That just sits there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure. Unfortunately, we're not out of the woods yet. I know here now, Texas, they obviously have different weather patterns, but here in Arizona, the monsoon doesn't end till around the end of September. So we're still in store for potentially another about 7 weeks of trouble.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be interesting. One thing here on News Now, we're covering the storm coverage nonstop here on News Now when the big monsoon storm hits. Usually it's our afternoon coverage that focuses on the monsoon as it, as the dust storms roll in, as the rain falls, and then typically it's my shift here in the mornings that's sort of recapping what happened last night. Let's look at all the damage. Let's look at the destruction.
Yes.
Because typically those storms do roll in through the afternoon. Though we have seen recently some morning storms as well.
Yeah. Well,
So.
one of the things that we were looking at earlier was exactly what was going on, not just in Texas, but in Oklahoma too. So a lot of folks really get hammered.
Yeah.
Tulsa had all kinds of damage left behind. In fact, a couple of people critically hurt.
Right, and speaking of Tulsa, I want to go back to our full screen map of the Texas flooding there in San Antonio, which is not too far from Oklahoma.
Hello. 1, 2, 3.
Again, those of you just joining us, we are looking at the radar coming out of Texas, where there's lots of flooding there in that greater San Antonio area.
Hello. 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, now I'm good.
All right, everyone, you were just listening as Troy tested out his mic. So we have swapped out anchors here. I'm joined now by Troy Hayden.
Now look at you.
Instead,
You got partners coming in and out and hanging out.
We have
Hi.
the one and only Troy Hayden
Good to
joining
see
us
some of you.
on the new News Now set. This is your first time here on the new News Now
Yeah,
set.
I'm very excited.
Thank you for
Fox
joining
10
us.
Extra, that's
I
awesome.
know, and I'm so glad that we have our morning anchor here joining us to talk about one of the big stories here in the greater Phoenix area. I want to go ahead and pull up this video of this tanker crash. So
This could have been really bad.
Yeah.
And it ended up that, well, wait until you see this video, because one of the things, and I can smile about it now because everybody in this survived, but when we first saw this video, we were all looking at each other saying, wait a second, this couldn't happen. Okay, so here's a great shot of it. It's a large tanker carrying some sort of, and when the call first came out, all we knew was it was a large tanker on its side. Something was leaking out of it. And on the back, there's those placards you see on the back to tell you what, a tanker's carrying, and it said flammable.
Right.
So it didn't have any markings of exactly what it was. It turns out it was jet fuel, that's what most planes will use. And it was on its side and leaking that jet fuel down into the gutter next to it.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So it could be bad, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So something interesting, when firefighters first got there, they pounded a stake into the ground as a ground. And then they pulled a wire from that stake over to the tanker itself, because even if you have like a small amount of static electricity, you can have an explosion.
Yeah, and that would be far worse. That would be a terrible end result.
8,000 gallons of fuel. Can you imagine?
That's so much.
Yeah, it'd be really bad. But then the other thing that was, to me, kind of blew me away, is you can see from this angle right here especially, look at that truck, the small truck.
Oh, underneath. Oh my goodness.
Crushed.
You're right. I mean, because most of us are focusing on the tanker because it takes up a large portion of your screen. But you're right. That truck completely destroyed.
Oh,
wow.
yeah. And so
here, I'm going to take it in full again so viewers get a better view of it.
Not a great angle of it there. The truck is on the right-hand side underneath the tanker. You can just see the front end of it right here on the very right-hand side of your screen. So, when this first came up on the air, we were talking live to our helicopter pilot, and I was saying to him, I just don't see anybody rushing towards that truck to get anybody out. And then looking at it, there's another great shot of it. I just don't see how somebody survives something like this. And if you don't see a door opened up, or they're not trying to rush in there and get that, you think the worst. You think the person in that other truck, may have been killed in this whole accident. But actually, that's not the case. We ended up talking with a lieutenant from Phoenix Fire, and there's that's a great shot of it right there. Actually, we just zoomed in past it. He said that when this very first happened, and we still don't know exactly how the truck rolled over onto its side. Me looking at it, looks like maybe it sideswiped another car and overcorrected and then rolled, and that truck just got in its way, the smaller truck. But a bystander, a woman, grabbed a tire jack out of her car right after this happened, ran over to this leaking tank of jet fuel A, and broke out the windows of that truck you saw totally crushed underneath and got that man out.
She's a hero.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my
she's
goodness!
A hero.
I mean, you're risking your life in that scenario to help save someone else's, which is so noble.
Selfless.
Yeah.
The thing is, and I after we got done talking about this, we had a commercial break right after, and I remember thinking to myself, going, okay, you'd like to think that you would do something like that,
right?
But you've got a tanker on its side, it's leaking out this fuel, you can smell it, there's no doubt. And you're going to rush over there and put yourself potentially in harm's way next to a bomb. Let's call it what it is: 8,000 gallons of fuel on its side.
Right. I mean, an unintentional bomb. Yeah.
Right. And she goes out there and has enough wherewithal to grab something to break out a window and somehow get that man out of that small truck. I think it's an amazing story.
No, it's an amazing story. I mean, it's a story of heroism.
Absolutely. So, and then now getting back to how they get this out of here. This is, it's not a very busy road. It's 59th Avenue and Lower Buckeye, and you can see it's going through kind of a rural area, some farm fields and things. We're putting in a brand new stretch of the Loop 202, which is one of our big freeways. They're putting in a brand new stretch that goes right through this whole area.
Right.
But so there's not a huge traffic issue that we're dealing with. But what they're going to have to do now is they're going to have to bring up another tanker. They actually drill holes, they say, in the side of this tanker and pump out all that fuel, 8,000 gallons.
It can't it's not supposed to go to waste.
Yeah, and they're not just going to open it up
Right.
and let it go down
Yeah,
the drain.
exactly.
You can't do that either. So they have to offload it onto another vehicle, and they said it could take them much of the day to do that.
Wow.
So it's quite an operation. But nobody, from what we understand,
Right.
critically injured.
That's the most important part.
Yeah.
I mean, again, kudos to the woman that rescued that man.
I know, I want to find her.
I feel like we should have, I'm assuming that we'll have a reporter on this story today.
Oh, I'm sure
I
we
would
do.
assume. So finding that woman, tracking her down, talking to her, I think, I want to hear that story. I'm sure the viewers at home want to hear that story.
Well, what would you do,
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's such a heroic move. I mean, I don't know if I would be that quick to, I would call 911, obviously.
Sure.
But
And then you're looking at it
that
thinking,
initiative.
it could be a fireball in 10 seconds.
Right, and we've seen that happen before, and it is the most important thing in a crash like that is just to get the people out of the vehicle as soon as possible.
And
And she risked her own life to make sure someone else's life was safe.
right. And she's not running up and jumping in front of the cameras either.
Again, it's like, what do
She's
you do
done.
in that scenario?
I don't know. I'd like to think I would have done that.
Yeah, we all would like to think that we would be the hero in this story,
Sure.
right? We would do the noble, selfless thing.
And make it happen, which they did, which is awesome.
But I don't know. Would I be driving by? Would I be on my phone? Would I be like, oh no, I'm going to be late to work? These are all things that normal people oftentimes think from a selfish perspective, sadly, And,
Sure.
and this woman did not do that. She knew that someone's life was at risk, and she took it upon herself to make sure that that individual would be safely rescued. And, like you're saying, no one critically injured, which is so good to hear in a
Yeah, and who
situation
knows?
that.
She may
look
have
at this.
little kids at home.
Right.
So is she thinking about if something happens to her? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not only like, should I do this? It's like a calculation of, should I put myself in harm's way? And maybe, my family loses me and, for a stranger. And she
Right.
did. So it was
Right.
noble.
Definitely.
So yeah, still a big process going on down there to pull that thing up and get it out of there.
Right.
But, looking at it again, there was a car about, I don't know, maybe an eighth of a mile away
Yeah.
that had some really side end damage. So you don't know if maybe the truck veered over or the car veered over. And by looking at it, it looks like maybe it got sideswiped, came over, overcorrected, and then went over like that. But a big full, imagine how much 8,000 gallons of jet fuel weighs.
Wow.
And to tip that thing over like that. So yeah, that was one of our breaking stories today. And I heard you talking with Ron earlier about the flooding in San Antonio. We had that
Yeah.
whole rescue situation. That was
There's,
a big deal.
there are a lot of big stories out there right now.
Yeah.
Again, for viewers who aren't aware of what's happening in D.C., President Trump's on vacation. Congress.
Wait a second, he's not on vacation, right? Didn't you see the tweets? He's working hard.
I'm just saying, technically, it is vacation
He's not at the
time now.
White House. They're doing work at the White House.
They're doing work at the White House. He's in New Jersey. He's going to be going to New York next week. Lots of meetings there, but most people have described it as it's a working vacation.
I'm kidding. Yes. He's playing golf and doing stuff.
But he plays golf even when he's not on vacation.
That's
Troy.
true.
He likes his
I'm
golf.
a golfer. I
He
get
likes
it.
his golf.
Yeah. It's, yeah, I'm not going to judge. We're going to jump into that.
I would love the opportunity to watch you and President Trump play golf.
I think he's better than I am, from what I've heard. I heard he's a pretty good player.
Are you
the
not
thing
too
is,
good?
No, I'm decent. But I think he's better. I think he's like probably like a 5 or 6 handicap, I thought I heard. I think I heard him say it. But, of course, everybody knows Donald Trump from 20 years ago writing all those books, or
Right.
25 years ago, who knows all that. But I kind of got to know him more through Celebrity Apprentice early on. And that's when I started following him on Twitter, actually, was way back in those days, because we used to enjoy Celebrity Apprentice, the first couple seasons especially.
Yeah.
And then he also used
Did
to
you
have
watch Regular Apprentice too before it was Celebrity Apprentice, or did you start watching when the celebrities came in the mix?
Who's the guy who I think still works for him? Bill? Tall guy, short hair. I watched that season. So maybe that was a Regular Apprentice.
Oh, Bill Rancic.
Yes.
The one that's married to Juliana from the E! Channel. Sorry.
So you knew all these things. No, I remember him. He was good. So I did watch that season, and then but we really got into it.
So that would be Regular Apprentice because he wasn't a celebrity.
Right.
He was now only a celebrity because of the show.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got into it. Like the Dennis Rodman year was great. Cyndi Lauper, Bret Michaels year.
You're a good
Yeah, we watched
expert.
them.
You're an
Yeah, we
expert.
watched those a lot. So, but anyway, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. But then we also really started. I started watching him or getting info from him. He had a golf show on the Golf Channel.
Oh.
And so he would take a film crew around to all of his different golf properties, and you saw him how he manages golf properties.
Let's
and they
talk
also showed
about
him
this
play.
because I didn't
Yeah.
see this show. I'd like to know more about this show and how President Trump did manage these properties.
Well, he went on he had a few properties. Now, I'm talking on total memory here. I haven't done any background on this or any research.
This is just a conversation you guys are watching unfold organically. This is not in our rundown. This is not planned. You guys are just seeing Troy and I hang out talking about the president.
But he had a few golf properties for years and years. But then he kind of went on a buying spree when, I think it was after the recession or during the recession. A lot of these golf properties that used to be like these marquee, diamond gold golf properties were cheap. And so he went in and bought a bunch of them.
Which is what a smart business person would do in that scenario if they have the money to do so.
Right. Like they say, when everybody's greedy, worry. When everybody worries, be greedy. That's Warren Buffett. So anyway, he swept in there and got these for a good price. And so it was him going in, and I think it was a lot of Donald Trump Jr. was with him, and I think his other son as well. And they would go in and talk to the management, and he would physically go through and walk through the course and say, no, those bunkers over there, they need to be moved over here. And the way this green is, I don't like it. It needs to have a little bit more of this. I mean, very hands-on.
Right. It seems like he just went with his instincts. He would just kind of see something and be like, my gut says do this.
Right. And cameras were there, so you don't know how real it was.
Right.
But as far as reality TV goes, and the one thing I remember striking me with him and his management style was he'd walk in and within like 20 seconds he'd be making calls. It wasn't like, let me see what's going on. He'd walk into a room and say, oh, yeah, that needs to go. This needs to be. Sense. You do this. And then a few different scenes, you'd see him grab his manager and kind of walk away from the camera and say something off camera. Yeah. And every once in a while, they'd let that come up, and it'd be a little different. It'd be kind of like, hey, look, I know you're working really hard on this, and I know you're. So it wasn't all like you, yeah. And then he'd be like, hey, look, I know you're working hard. I know, but it's not happening. And
that's really interesting.
It was good, but it showed him golfing a lot. I'm sorry, it took me a long time to get to that.
Back to golf.
And so he'd go out and golf these courses, and he's got an interesting swing. It's a slashing swing. It's almost more like a Kiki Rodriguez or whatever.
Right, with the show me the Trump swing. You can stand. I mean,
a lot of swings, are we going to get in trouble for talking about golf on here?
I don't think so.
So a lot of swings are just like a long swing like this where it comes through and you go through like this.
Yeah,
Hold
on, let me
But he was more of like a slasher. He comes through and just goes straight through like this. But it's a pretty good swing, and it looked like he was hitting a long ways down the fairway. So there you go. There's a Donald Trump golf lesson.
Well, what's interesting that you brought up the Donald Trump golf swing today. Last week, Mike and I were breaking down the Donald Trump handshake. So, this week we tell you about the golf swing. Last week we brought you the handshake. But yeah, just the particularities of what the president is like. Very interesting.
The whole thing has been interesting in that, he's doing things in such a different way than anybody else has before, and you never know what's going to happen next. The thing that bothers me the most about everything is just I don't feel like there's a lot getting done. That's me. There's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of fighting, and this goes beyond Donald Trump. Nobody seems to want to work together anymore. It's just us versus them, and what big legislation have we seen come out of Congress or the White House in the last 6 months?
Right, I know a lot of people are saying, well, the Republicans have, all of Congress, they have the White House. Why aren't things getting done? The question is, should both sides just be working harder together? I mean, everyone's talking about, well, you have control of, the executive branch, the legislative, and you should be able to just get these things through. I think, just as a regular American, as an observer, that it's important for both sides to work together to get to, resolutions, regardless of who has the majority. I think that would be the way to make everyone happy. It was with, they talked about it with the healthcare bill, for example.
With big problems, you have to work together.
Right. It doesn't matter if you have the majority. I mean, no. I think at
because
least.
Big problems are big because they're not easy.
Right.
They're not easy to solve, and they don't necessarily have one way of solving them. Sometimes you have to come at different things. I think that, and I feel bad. I shouldn't say I feel bad, but I wonder about some people who are so hardcore on their side of things that they can never look at the other side and say, okay, I'll give you that point.
Right.
That point's a good point, but 80% of the stuff you say I don't agree with. But some people are like, everything that comes out of this, whatever side it is, this side's mouth is
partisan.
trash.
It's just partisan. It's just taking sides without listening to the other side. And I think that's important. You can be Republican, you can be Democrat, and you can have your beliefs, but I think it's really important for both sides to be able to at least listen to the other side, to be able to understand the other side. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to agree with it at all. But as long as you understand the other side, it makes you explaining your position easier.
Right.
So.
And there's got to be a give and take.
Right.
Because things, the founding fathers did such an amazing job putting this together.
Yeah,
Think about it.
They really thought it through when they came up with, the separations of power, the 3 branches of government, guys. We're going to give you a little bit of a history lesson right now. Your legislative branch, your judicial branch, your executive branch. That was the whole point. They never wanted anyone to sort of have tyrannical power.
They didn't want a king.
No. They did not want to go back to the UK lifestyle.
No, we had a king. And then, the UK rejected having it. Well, they have a queen, but she doesn't have the power she used to have.
Right, and for those of you just joining us, Troy and I are just kind of talking about, we were talking about President Trump and his golfing style, but now we've gotten to this topic where we're talking about just the way the government is working right now, the partisanship, the fact that it just doesn't seem like a lot's getting done over there in D.C.
No, besides talking and fighting.
Yeah, and tweeting.
And tweeting and firing and hiring and just,
and resigning.
It's too bad. Because we do have issues. Look, the immigration issue is still a huge issue.
Right.
And I know.
Especially here in Arizona.
Oh, we're right there.
Yeah.
I was in Mexico last weekend.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was. We have a place called Rocky Point or Sandy Beach. It's like a 3.5-hour drive. Yeah, it's a 3-hour drive. And actually, a fantastic, beautiful beach, nice hotels right along there. You don't want to spend a lot of time in town. But I will tell you this: you go into town, you see the poverty, and that's like the nice part of Rocky Point.
Yeah.
There's a big disparity there. Anyway, but that's. I hate to say it, but that's not necessarily our problem.
Right.
We try to take care of our own.
And and we're bringing money in by going there as tourists.
Oh, I left a lot of money there.
You're like, don't tell me. I give them a lot of money.
No, hey, it's good, but I got a good time out of it, But we have to come together. It can't just be one person's solution to immigration because they're multifacets. I mean, I know that some people are like, well, the dreamers who were brought here as infants or 2-year-olds or whatever. No, we got to send them right back to Mexico. But there are so many people who have such a great point, saying, well, wait a second.
Right.
They didn't climb a fence to get here. They were a baby in a basically in somebody's arms, and they're more American than a lot of America.
Right. Well, they might not have any knowledge of. They didn't experience Mexico firsthand. They probably have never even been to Mexico.
Have no connection or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, that's an issue.
Yeah.
That's not totally black and white.
Right.
To a lot of people, but I know that the other thing is, anyway, both sides have to work together. That's it.
In conclusion, can't we all just get along? Isn't there something we can all agree on?
I want to know, can you look up real quick what Donald Trump's handicap is? His golf handicap?
I can Google. You mean Google
it?
Okay.
Let's not wager, but because wagering's not great. I'm going to say he's a single-digit handicap.
I'm not going to make any assumptions because I don't really know golf.
So he shoots in the 70s regularly, which is really good for an amateur golfer.
Okay.
3 handicap?
Oh, well, there's an article on The Guardian from last year. Is Donald Trump lying about having a 3 handicap? I don't know what that means. So I am not a golf
A 3 handicap
person.
means he shoots close to even par, like a lot.
Wow.
So 73, 75, and that's really hard for people who aren't pros, who don't practice all the time.
Well, he does practice all the time, though.
Yeah. And apparently,
he loves his golf.
I thought I read. Oh, was it him telling the story about when he went to Wharton that he used to not hustle guys, but he used to golf and that he'd make some money.
Like you kind of fake it like you're not that good, and then you bet, and then you own them.
Or you just beat a lot of guys at golf.
Or you just be good.
Yeah, and beat them, and
you know what?
Make some money. Who knows?
Work your strengths.
But if he's really a 3 handicap, that's something. You know who else is a 2 handicap? You'd probably never guess. Local guy, one of the biggest celebrities here in the Valley, Alice Cooper.
Oh, really?
It's a 2 handicap.
Well, if you're a celebrity here in the Valley, considering the number of golf courses here,
I know.
I would expect that you'd spend some time on those golf courses.
We have 200 golf courses in Maricopa County.
That's a lot of golf courses.
That's a lot. It's a good place
there's a reason President Trump always gives shout-outs to Arizona. He does like Arizona. Maybe it's for the golf.
We definitely have some nice courses.
Yeah.
I think for sure.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, how about the restoration at the White House? That's pretty cool.
We have the White House up. I put the White House on the screen while we talked just because we were talking about Trump all the time, and I didn't have a picture.
Is the crane still there?
I didn't have a picture firsthand of, Trump golfing.
Is the crane still there? No, the crane's down. So earlier this morning, they had a big crane back there. They put a new air conditioning unit up on top, is what we heard. How about that?
Yeah, I would have liked to see that giant.
You got to have good AC. Yeah, it was actually just from this angle right here. It was just to the right of the Washington Monument. So I think what they were doing was they were putting on that end of the White House, putting a new big old AC unit up there.
Right.
And here in Arizona, we know how important AC is.
Oh yes. Without AC, it's. I imagine it would be a very difficult place to live.
In the humidity down there.
Yeah, it is super humid, and especially the summers are humid. The winters are cold. That's just part of the East Coast lifestyle, though. It's pretty just humid in general in the summer. I think we're fortunate in the sense that for most of the summer we get a dry heat. We do get some humidity. We've been having really humid days in the last few weeks because of, the monsoon. But at least we don't have to deal with humidity for 3-4 months out of the year.
No.
I'd pick 110-degree dry heat over 95-degree heat with humidity.
All day long. Absolutely.
So we're kind of winning here in Arizona is what I'm saying.
We're always winning.
We're winning.
Winning. Yeah, and your sweat works when it's not humid. When it's humid, it doesn't work as well. It's like a swamp cooler.
Yeah, it's gross. It's
we
sticky.
have 2 different coolers here in Phoenix, and we have 2 different grasses. People don't usually know that. So you use...
I don't even see grass in general here in Phoenix. Like, the area that I live in, there's grass and there's a golf course, and I chose to live there, I think subconsciously, because I saw the grass on the road.
Nice?
I saw it and it reminded me, it was really green and it kind of reminded me of California. I was like, okay, I can live here. But I do think most of the time when I drive through Phoenix, a lot of homes don't have grass. They have, just rocks and stuff to kind of landscape their homes. So it's rare to see grass. So tell me about the 2 different grass types here.
So in the winter, it gets kind of chilly, but ryegrass loves it. So ryegrass is that beautiful, thin, like electric green grass you see in the wintertime on your golf course that you drive by. It's just amazing, right? And then what's weird is, you probably noticed that so in the summer we have Bermuda grass. So Bermuda grass, when I grew up in California, Bermuda grass was a weed. But it can...
Frowned upon.
Yeah.
A frowned upon grass.
Well, a weed is anything that grows where you don't want it to grow, right?
When you say weeds, you just think of things that are...
Yeah, so anyway, that grows in the summer and does really well in our heat, but ryegrass dies. So that's why if you drive around in like October and all of a sudden all the grass just suddenly got brown, you've noticed that, right? All of a sudden it just gets brown. Well, you scull down the Bermuda grass, take it all the way down to where you can almost see the dirt, and you throw your rye seed down, and then the rye grows up all winter.
Troy is our resident grass expert here on News.
2 lawns. And then, like most of the early part of the summer and the late part of the summer, you can use what they call a swamp cooler. And a lot of people around the world probably know what swamp coolers are, but basically it just allows water to come down, and the air gets pulled through, and it blows into your house, and that works. But when our humidity gets up there, swamp coolers stop working. So you've got to have the regular AC.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. People are always like, how do you do it in Arizona? It's easy. You go from an air-conditioned building to an air-conditioned car. You go from the air-conditioned car into your air-conditioned store. You leave the air-conditioned store, you go back to your air-conditioned car, then you go from the air-conditioned car into your air-conditioned apartment, and you really don't deal with the heat. It pretty much feels like living in San Diego. As an optimist, I'm going to just go with that. As long as you're still inside all those air-conditioned places.
Right. And our summer is our winter. That's what I always tell my friends. You know what I'm saying? Like our summer is like
their winter.
People,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, like,
you know what? I'd rather take our heat than having to deal with the snow and the shoveling and the getting ice off your car and the bundling up and all that stuff. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I can visit that if I need to, but I'm pretty happy here when it's 70 degrees in January.
Good. Well, we've had a wide-ranging discussion, Sami. I've enjoyed it.
Right. What started with a tanker crash ended in discussion about grass and air conditioning. That's what News Now is about. You know, we can take these conversations, go from a serious news story to a more lighthearted news story. My favorite part of my conversation with Troy today, breaking down Trump's golf swing.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
That was my...
Yeah, you go see some video of it. He slashes at it. He's really, instead of like a smooth like this, it's a this.
It's like a...
Yeah, you know who else had a swing like that is Arnold Palmer. So if you know Arnold Palmer's swing, his swing is much more like Arnold Palmer's, where it's kind of a push, but it works.
Yeah, even his handshake. We probably missed the segment with Mike and I where we discussed
No, what is it?
So he goes like this.
Like straight down like this?
Okay, he'll go like this, and then you have to put your put your hand. So I'm giving you a handshake like this, so in, and then he pulls him in like that.
Oh, I do see the pull in.
Yeah, so he did that. So he was like, oh. And then he did that.
So what's after the pull-in?
I'm just saying that was the handshake that we broke down last Monday. Last Monday we broke down that handshake because he was in the Oval Office with his new Chief of Staff, Kelly. And we just noticed that Trump had a very specific style of handshake where he
So does it end with the pull-in? I'm asking you.
Yeah, and then it's shaking.
Oh, then it shakes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
It's
the
a
pull-in,
pull-in,
but it's just, you can
shake.
see the power of the president in that handshake.
He's a big guy.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I learned something today.
The Trump handshake.
The pull-in.
Yeah, I mean, that was at least what we analyzed that one day, last Monday.
And you can
in the
take that
Oval
in a
Office.
couple different ways. Is it like, I'm going to bring you in closer to me? This is like, I'm bringing you close to me because this is what we're doing, is we're doing this manly kind of shake embrace thing?
Yeah.
Or is it, I want to pull you a little off balance?
I don't know.
There you
President Trump, if you're watching, please let us know what exactly
it's all about
your
the
thoughts
handshake.
are behind your handshake. I assume President Trump is watching at home.
Of course. Well, I remember when during the campaign they would put your rallies up all the time.
I know, President Trump.
Yeah.
Such a fan.
He's a News Now
of
guy.
News Now.
Well, Salmi, I'm very excited for this, for Fox 10 Next. This is very cool. Extra.
Fox 10 Extra.
Yeah. I'm very, very excited about this.
Okay, it's day one. It's a pretty big deal, and
Yeah, I'm excited I got brought on.
we're glad that we had you here,
Yeah,
Troy.
good.
Thanks
Well, have
for
a
hanging.
good rest part of your day. I'm
Thank
gonna go back
you.
and get back to work.
And I'm going to go ahead and show viewers, since we had so much Trump talk, a quick look at the White House. All right, everyone. So joining me now, we keep just rotating people in and out of the hot seat here on News Now. We got Ron, we got Troy. Now we're joining by the one and only Mike Page.
Yes. How you guys all doing? Happy to be here. We're 11 o'clock now, top of the hour. How you doing this today?
And it is Monday here on News Now. We've been bouncing around through a lot of different news stories. We saw the flooding in San Antonio, Texas. Lots of flooding there, lots of rain over there. We had that tanker crash here in the greater Phoenix area over like lower Buckeye, 59th Avenue. That was a crazy story. There were a lot of news stories out there sort of to talk about, to recap. And of course, I know a lot of our viewers just want to know what President Trump is up to. So in case you guys missed, exactly, that's what President Trump's been up to. He is in New Jersey, and he's been tweeting specifically about Senator Blumenthal this morning.
There we go. And so a lot to do with that. I know that we had a press conference to show that. Maybe we'll get into a little bit later in the show.
I actually did want to show the viewers that in just a couple minutes.
And
Senator
we
Blumenthal's
are
press
also
conference.
learning that we have our Fox drone up, but right now it's a frozen shot. But right there, they're at that 59th Avenue tanker accident that you and Troy were talking about as well.
Right. So as soon as we get these pictures working from our Sky Drone, is that the name of it now? Is that what we're going to call it?
So a good old Sky Drone.
Sky
Yeah,
Drone
why not?
or Fox Drone Fox? I don't
Yeah.
know. As soon as these pictures get in and become a bit more clear, we're going to go ahead and show you guys that here on News Now. Can I show them the frozen image so they at least get a still maybe?
Look at it. It's not really frozen right now.
Oh, I guess it is kind of moving.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That
is a great shot.
That is
right
our
there.
drone cam here on News Now.
It just gives you such a different perspective than what we saw earlier with aerials from Skyfox.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if it could go down just a little bit lower. We'll see if that's available. But yeah, there's always so much to talk about there when we have the drone up as well. It just gives you that, like I was saying, that different perspective than the aerials that you'll get maybe from Skyfox.
Yeah, it's a very different look. And these are live pictures coming in right now, guys. These are live pictures coming in, courtesy of Drone Fox. I guess that's what I'm going to call it.
Going to call it Drone Fox?
It's Drone Fox. I mean, I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
Because Sky Drone then doesn't include our Fox branding.
Yeah.
So, Fox Drone, I don't know. Again, guys, this is a tanker crash, Lower Buckeye near 59th Avenue. These are live pictures coming in.
It's just, you hate to see an accident like that. Any accident is bad, but when you're dealing with a tanker that, and then a pickup truck, yeah, all the fuel that's associated with that, that's such a shame, especially for a Monday here, as now we're learning that people were injured, and
right.
That's just definitely not the situation that you want to put anybody in here, but we're getting a totally different perspective here, and it just still looks bad. So that cleanup crew is going to be there for quite some time. I mean, with something like this, you got to get the whole accident investigation and a lot of different moving parts there.
Oh yeah, and just a quick update. I just heard from one of our executive producers here. The official name of the drone is the Sky Fox drone.
Sky Fox drone. There he is.
So we'll keep that in mind every time we take the Sky Fox drone, guys.
Yes.
As you can tell, this is one of the early uses of Sky Fox drone.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a really neat perspective to have, and definitely. So we're taking a look here. If you're just joining us here, it was just a horrible crash there, lower Buckeye near 59th Avenue with this tanker crash.
Right. And one of the topics that, you know, you and I were just recapping was this whole Trump feud with Senator Blumenthal. He had tweeted about it. He started calling Blumenthal out on his, phony experience in Vietnam.
Yes.
The question is, why is he calling Blumenthal out today? Well, it's interesting. Senator Blumenthal holding a press conference today about a bill that would prevent the president from firing the special counsel, Mueller, regarding the Russia investigation. And we weren't able to take that press conference live here on News Now. So what I'm going to do is actually show viewers that Blumenthal press conference now so they can make their own decisions here on News Now.
The special counsel. I introduced that legislation along with a bipartisan group of colleagues, 2 Republicans, 4 Democrats, on last Thursday. Protecting Robert Mueller's independence is vital to his credibility and capability to uncover the truth about criminality at the highest levels. The Russian meddling in the 2016 election, potential Trump campaign collusion with it, and later obstruction of justice. So when Congress reconvenes in September, we must pass immediately a law that will provide protection against Donald Trump firing the special counsel. We've proposed that a 3-judge panel would review any attempt to fire the special counsel and establish a good cause requirement. In other words, Donald Trump could not fire the special counsel unless he is able to establish that there is good cause for doing so. The news of Mueller's grand jury activity, his assembling a team of experienced, battle-tested prosecutors, his request for records regarding Michael Flynn, all point toward the progress that he is making. And they have led President Trump to characterize this investigation as a witch hunt and a fishing expedition, a hoax. He has tried to draw red lines around his financial dealings, and he has launched vague attacks of conflicts of interest. They are all designed to intimidate and chill the investigation, and they may have an even more sinister purpose as a prelude to firing the special counsel. So this apprehension is real and based on facts. And so is the investigation. It is real. It is based on facts. So I will advocate for this measure. There are two separate measures. They differ only slightly in their technical details, but the proposals essentially are to prevent the President of the United States from firing the special counsel without approval of a 3-judge panel who would review that step and assess whether it is based on good cause. And let me just say finally, at stake is more than just the President or the special counsel. It is indeed the rule of law. To this President, the rule of law may be meaningless, but that's exactly why we need this legislation. His contempt for the rule of law may lead him, in fact, to fire the special counsel. Congress has the immediate imperative to make sure that the rule of law is upheld. The grand jury provides some permanence and protection because it's an arm of the court. But this measure will be necessary, I fear, in light of the threats and intimidation that we see coming out of the White House these days. So I'm happy to take your question.
Senator
Jen?
I want to get your take on the president's tweets this morning. He saw you on CNN. And during those tweets, he said he called you a phony Vietnam con artist. I want to get your reaction to those.
Well, I'm here to talk about the special counsel legislation. There is an ongoing special counsel investigation. It is real. It is based on facts. That is the important issue. That's what really matters. Our national security and the rule of law are at stake, and I am not going to be distracted or bullied by these slurs.
Well, are they slurs? I mean, they're based in the fact of admitted misstatements that you've made.
They are slurs, and I'm not going to be distracted or bullied by them, and they simply reinforce, in fact, the need, in my view, for special counsel legislation, because these kinds of tweets, intimidation directed at the special counsel indicate that the president may try to fire him.
Have you found that your misstatements have in any way compromised your standing with Connecticut voters? I mean, you've been reelected, so.
I'm going to let the elections speak for themselves.
So, what specifically is he saying that is incorrect? Because you have admitted making the statement, but what specifically is he saying that you think?
Well, again, I'm going to let the facts as they've been established speak for themselves. I'm not going to be distracted. The special counsel legislation is all the more important in light of these bullying slurs. They are false. And I'm going to let the record speak for itself. The need for this special counsel legislation is only reinforced because these tweets are part and parcel of the kinds of intimidation and threats that he has made against the special counsel, against anyone who seeks to uncover the truth.
What is this legislation then? Is it interfering with the executive branch? I mean, will this, withstand a challenge, or do you expect a challenge from the administration if you were able to pass such a bill?
I think it will withstand a constitutional challenge. Good question, because the constitutional issue could be raised, but the good cause standard is established in the law. It requires, as to many federal employees, that they simply cannot be discharged or disciplined without a showing of malfeasance or conflicts of interest or other specific violation. That's the standard that would be applied here by a 3-judge panel. And Congress has a role and responsibility in safeguarding this special counsel investigation. The special counsel is looking into an attack on this country that was unprecedented, an attack by the Russians through cyber, propaganda, disinformation that may have been aided and abetted by the Trump campaign, and later involving potential obstruction of justice in the firing of Jim Comey. These issues are extraordinarily serious, and Congress has its own investigations on the Judiciary Committee, where there is an ongoing investigation into obstruction of justice. The Senate Intelligence Committee has a similar effort, but at the core of this responsibility is the special counsel, who has the sole obligation and opportunity to bring criminal charges. And the message has to be sent that this investigation will continue. This investigation is not going away. The president cannot stop it by firing the special counsel. The grand jury is an arm of the court. He can try to take the extreme step of firing the special counsel, but he can't fire the grand jury, and he can't fire the court.
Senator, isn't it possible that some of your comments could backfire on the relationship between the president's administration and the state of Connecticut? You go on CNN, you go on MSNBC or any of these other shows criticizing the president, talking about collusion. How can you then speak legitimately with his administration about ways to help Connecticut? Why would they want to play ball with you politically, in other words, if they know that you're going to go out there and you're going to speak very critically and very openly all the time?
I have an obligation to speak truth to power, literally. Just as we all do in the United States Senate. I am by no means the only senator who has been critical of the President of the United States. Members of his own party have been as scathing as I have been. But at the end of the day, the President represents all the people of the United States, including the people of Connecticut. He has that responsibility independently of any senator or congressman. And so I'm going to continue to be critical of the President where I differ with him. I believe he is deeply and desperately mistaken in an immigration policy that betrays American values. I believe that he has illegally taken payments and benefits in violation of the Constitution, and I brought a lawsuit based on it. I believe that his health care proposals have been cruel and costly and therefore were defeated by the United States Senate. I think that many of his other policies relating to education, for example, are misguided. I will continue to be critical of the President, and I will continue to fight for the rule of law, which will be upheld by this special counsel investigation. It is real, it is based on facts, and finally, returning to the topic of the interview this morning, I will continue to insist on protecting First Amendment values and the free press. I will not allow the President of the United States to chill the free press or the work of reporters who have uncovered embarrassing or revealing truths that have led to the special counsel investigation and other action.
If and when something like an infrastructure bill or opioid abuse, opioid help, things like that come out of Washington, then Connecticut doesn't get anything, we don't get anything for a bridge or a highway or any of those things, do you think it's fair to connect comments like yours, comments like Senator Murphy's, to a result like that?
I would hope that Connecticut will receive its fair share of any funding, and I will fight for that fair share. And I believe that we can put aside any criticisms or differences that we have, and I stand ready and willing to work with the President where I agree with him. For example, on infrastructure, I've said from day one, if I'd been in Donald Trump's shoes, I would have made the first proposal of the United States Congress a massive infrastructure program to rebuild our roads and bridges and ports and airports and broadband and VA facilities. And I stand ready and willing to work with him, indeed have mentioned some of these ideas to members of the cabinet. I stand ready and willing to work with the President on Veterans Affairs, and just this past week, 2 of the bills that I have helped to draft, the Choice Program dealing with veterans' health and the GI Bill dealing with the post-9/11 generation, have passed the Congress. I hope the President will sign them. They are bipartisan, just as the bill to protect the special counsel is. And on the Armed Services Committee, I've been a champion of increased defense spending, as the President has proposed. I hope that he'll continue to build 2 submarines, even 3, at Electric Boat, because it is in our national security interests. Our national interests and the interests of Connecticut are what I will fight to uphold, and where it is possible to work with the President, I am more than a willing partner.
Senator, are members of Congress concerned about the Attorney General?
All right, so we were taking a little listen there of Senator Blumenthal really go at President Trump. They're back at it now.
Right, so Senator Blumenthal speaking out on a cable news channel, and then, of course, President Trump tweeting this morning, then Blumenthal holding this press conference. Yeah, I mean, Blumenthal's thing is there needs to be a bill that prevents the president from firing the special counsel. The special counsel was put in place specifically for a purpose, so you just can't get rid of the special counsel.
Sure. All right, well, so we're going to go to another story here. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, poor Florida here, Pasco County, Florida, where a sinkhole just developed in this neighborhood, and then just last night, unfortunately, 2 more people had to lose their homes.
Is this the same sinkhole?
Same sinkhole.
This is the same sinkhole where we were on Sinkhole Watch for hours on News Now.
Yes, so we're going to go that where officials are going to be giving an update here. Take a look.
The walls on that home, and there was also cracking the walls of 21845 Ocean Pines Drive. Again, today debris removal will continue from Cirrus Environmental Services. They are the main debris removal contractor. Debris removal operations continuing until further notice. Again, that's why we ask you to be careful as you go in there. We don't want to slow down the emergency operation, the cleanup effort, and the debris removal. So if you can try to stay out of the way of the large trucks, try to stay off the road and get a vantage point, and hopefully everybody will be safe. That is our goal. The dump truck numbers that we have as far as uncrushed lime rock that was being brought in to help shore up the sides of the sinkhole, a total of about 125 dump trucks have been hauled in with this type of material. That was 55 dump trucks on Saturday and 70 dump trucks on Sunday. I just got off the phone with the project manager. I don't have a firm number for today. And again, I don't want to put out erroneous information, so I'm just putting out the information that I can verify. And that is, at this point, 125 dump trucks have been brought in with fill material. There were 5 semi-loads of debris that were taken out of the area on Saturday. That's the latest information that I have still as far as the debris. The latest attack and kind of tactic that we plan to have here is backhoes and grader equipment are in the area, and they're used to shore up the bank, and we also have a small backhoe that's on the barge to pick up debris. And that's kind of the tactic that they started over the weekend. It worked, and that's the tactic that they're going to continue to do. Again, using a backhoe, some graders to shore up the sides, make sure that's stable, at the same time scooping up the debris that they find in the water in the sinkhole. Monday, starting today, the company that will be removing the water is Enviro Waste. They'll be taking it to a wastewater treatment facility. And again, the main purpose for that is to lower the water, but not too much. If they lower the water significantly, it could affect the stabilization of the banks. But they do want to lower the water a little bit so they can get to the debris. but there may put some more water in just to make sure that the banks are stable. That's kind of the process that we're seeing, and we'd like to thank Enviro Waste for coming out here and assisting with that. The current cleanup phase, what we're currently doing in this phase, they call it phase 1, is removing debris, and that's all that will take place during phase 1. And when that phase is over, we'll go back to the Board of County Commissioners with Plan B for phase 2, and we'll take that one step at a time. Again, this is a slow process. If we have to stop operation for safety, we'll certainly do that. And I appreciate the press cooperation. We had a couple safe locations for the press, and keep that in mind. I've had conversation with several reporters. Just keep a safe distance, and we do appreciate that. There was one other thing that I did want to mention before we get into the questions. The goal here is to be done in as quickly as possible, but as safe as possible. The main contractor tells us that they are expected to be completed with phase 1 around Friday, August 18th, give or take a couple days on either side. They also say that they're coming in under budget. Our total expense for this is around $1.3 million. The Board of County Commissioners approved last Monday not to exceed $1.3 million. That's what we have funding for. Cirrus says that they're probably going to come in under budget. Right around $1 million is what we're looking for the overall project. Cirrus, we have a purchase order for them for around $600,000, and the other costs are really for like fill dirt and other materials, removing of the water as well. I'm going to open it up to questions. Let me just first, if you have a question, if you want it in Spanish, let us know, and we'll go ahead and do that as well.
Doug, since overnight and through the weekend, you've condemned more homes. You found evidence of cracking, the stair-step cracking from the foundation to the roof. In one home, you found evidence of floor cracking and granite cracking. In another home, we've said for several days now that the sinkhole is not expanding, but are potentially other sinkholes, if you will, developing under those homes, causing that subsurface issue?
You know, without having an engineer explain exactly whether it's growing or not, I think the best way to describe it is that there are a number of subsurface anomalies, depressions that existed prior to the sinkhole opening up. There were a number of homes that had sinkhole mitigation done, and you're seeing probably that seismic activity aggravating some of those existing sinkholes. So we are reluctant to say the sinkhole is growing at this point. However, it is certainly, Mother Nature is taking it back. You know, if you look at the 30 and 40-year pictures here, apparently where some of those homes were located was in the middle of a lake. So, you know, it may be Mother Nature just taking back and this lake trying to become a lake again. We don't know. It's a little bit too early for that. It might be premature to say the sinkhole is growing. What we are confident in saying is that there were depressions that existed prior to the sinkhole opening up, and the current sinkhole activity is probably aggravating those depressions that existed.
So the condemned homes will, all 7 condemned homes, including the 2 that's already in, will eventually be demolished, is that right?
It will be up to the homeowner to really make that final decision, but that is the plan. Yes, those 7 homes will eventually be demolished, especially since a certificate of demolition has been issued. That is different from a red tag. A red tag means that you can enter the home, but a notice of demolition is that you can't inhabit the home at all.
If it meets the criteria for demolition, what does that mean financially? Are they eligible for any money from the county, or is it all an insurance?
Well, you know, when it comes to that, I'd ask each homeowner to really talk to their own insurance company, probably their own attorney, just to make sure that they're protecting their rights as they move forward. So this is a catastrophic financial event for some people. It's a catastrophic event nonetheless, and then you throw in, you know, these are people's nest eggs. Their home sometimes is the biggest investment they may have. So we ask that those individuals make sure that they do their due diligence, talk to their insurance companies. If they need legal advice, maybe seek that as well.
You talked about phase 1 being removal of debris, decontamination of the water, stabilization of the bank. What's the next phase?
Well, that's we don't exactly know what is going to entail phase 2. Phase 1 is the stabilization of the bank and the cleaning up of the debris. You know, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have a false expectation that at the end of phase 1 it's going to look like a perfect green space. You know, that may be the ultimate goal, or it may be the goal to have water in that area. We don't know. Maybe make it a retention pond. It's going to take a lot of fill dirt to make it a green space again, and will Mother Nature let us do that? So we're really kind of at that beginning wait and see attitude, and that's why we're taking it phase by phase, because we may not be prepared to give the Board of County Commissioners a recommendation for phase 2 yet, especially if we're still seeing sinkhole activity take place in this area. So that's why we're waiting. We're taking one step at a time. So what we do know is phase 1 is going on right now, and that's the cleanup of the debris and removal of some of the water that's in the sinkhole.
Was anyone actually back in their home out of those 7 homes, or were they still evacuated?
The easiest way of describing this is all the homes that are inside the gate have been evacuated. And there is one home that is in the process of being moved out, and that's 21748 Ocean Pines Drive. That was the home that had some cracking in the walls. They are moving out today. The homeowners have asked us to let the media know that they would like to not speak to them right now, that they're trying to get as much of their belongings out. So, you know, our response to that is try not to impede with emergency operations. That's people moving out of their homes. That's trucks going in and out. That will only slow down our process. And the media has been great to work with, and I appreciate you doing that. I know you've got a job to do, and you know, but if you just try to respect those individuals' wishes. That was the wish that they told us. I'm just trying to convey to you that the homeowners were moving out of 21748 Ocean Pines Drive. They're trying to do it as fast as they can and as safely as possible. All right, without any further questions, I'm going to let Monica Santiago give a briefing in Spanish, and I appreciate you coming out here.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Mónica.
All right, everybody, so we were just getting that update there from officials, Pasco County, Florida officials, where they're still dealing with more sinkhole problems. And we'll be back right with you coming up next. Test one, test one, test two.
Is that live right there?
All right, you are taking a live look right now of the White House, and boy, they're getting some rain right there. But now, let's go back right here to sunny Phoenix. I'm joined by Celeste Rodriguez. How you doing?
Hi, how fun to be up here with you.
I know.
Good morning, everyone.
The opening show, so congrats.
Yeah,
Thanks
it looks
so much.
fabulous. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you, thank you. Well, so much going on today, but I think it's also a good time to also pause and because a lot of people love watching guys on AZAM, and this is kind of they have a great program, great show. They do it every morning,
bright and early, 4:30 a.m.
So a lot of people want to know kind of the backstory and the kind of the backstories that you don't get to hear about. You know, the stuff that's not on your teleprompter, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how is it then? Waking up that early? I think that's maybe the first question you always get, right? Something like that?
Like, how do you do it? How do you do it? You have kids, you have a husband, you have a family. How do you balance it all? You know, you get a lot of help, right? Friends, family, help you with the kiddos.
Yes.
But you wake up really early. So we're in here by 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So that means wake up time on my 6 alarm clocks.
Yeah, there you go, right? Not 1, not 2.
Right, it's about 2:30. I also have an Apple Watch that I set an alarm to.
Okay.
And it vibrates.
Oh, that's good.
So if I don't happen to hear another alarm,
yes,
you know, I have a couple on my wrist that really helps as well.
Oh, that's great.
So then we hop in here, we kind of powwow with some of the producers. They've been here throughout the night in the overnight hours, and then we talk about some of the stories that are happening right now. And then the show starts before you know it.
Yeah.
You know, 4:30 a.m. comes really quick.
Yes, it comes real quick. It's called, yeah, that's quick.
So then we're on the air from 4:30 to 10 o'clock in the morning. And then after that, of course, you guys kind of take over. But then from 10 to 10:30, we have kind of a little bit of a break period where we, you know, kind of can check our emails and do a few things like that. And social media, of course, respond to some of the posts on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
Definitely.
And then at 10:30, we all meet for a discussion on stories either that we're talking about or we're seeing happening out in you know, the Twitter sphere or social media, things we want to cover for the next day. And then after that, we, you know, we hang out in there in the conference room together for a little while, and we talk about that. And then we talk about ways to execute them for the next day. And then we kind of do some promos, and then the noon show's here.
Hey, look at that. It has to be there, right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then at some time in between there, we have breakfast and lunch.
There you go. Yeah, you got to get that in because I would have a crushing headache, I think.
Yeah.
Just a total crushing headache.
Yeah, and we drink lots of coffee.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, well, except for Corey and Ron, they do sodas.
Yeah,
that
know. Helps too.
Yeah, but
I feel like though with coffee, it would keep you more caffeinated longer. I think when you drink too much soda, sometimes it gives you the big rush, but then that crash comes real hard.
Yeah.
So I think the coffee kind of elongates it a little.
Right, I think so. Good. I'm glad you think that.
Yeah.
So especially I think if you drink Mountain Dew.
Sure.
So when I was in college, one of my gigs was a writing job in the overnight hours.
Okay.
And some of the overnight producers would say, you need to drink Mountain Dew. You need to drink Mountain Dew. It has the most caffeine. It'll keep you up all night. And so I used to drink that once in a while. I haven't really noticed the difference between that and other sodas. But yeah, we do whatever we can.
You do. You do. And that's what, now, a lot of people now want to know, okay, so now you get home, do you take a nap or do you kind of just try to go right through it so you could go to bed at a decent hour?
Everybody has their own schedules, but for me, I try to nap for like 30 to 45 minutes.
Get that power nap in.
Yeah, even if I close my eyes and not completely fully get into like a REM sleep and I just rest for a little bit, absolutely.
There you go. Yeah, that's the good stuff then.
Or kick my feet up and watch another episode of House of Cards or something like that, you know?
I always say it's great with the morning show folks because they're the first ones that get to experience the weekend, TGIF.
Oh yes,
right?
on Fridays.
You get to, but then on the other flip of that, you're the first one to experience Monday. Yeah, so
Sundays,
it's a give and take, right?
Sundays can be hard. We did movie night last night at our house with our kiddos because they go back to school on Wednesday. So this is like the last couple of days of summer, so they could stay up a little bit later.
Yes.
And it was hard to like go to bed.
Oh sure.
When they're still watching a movie, you know.
Yeah.
But you do it. You deal with it, and you know, I'll finish the rest when I get home later.
Oh yeah, there you go. Thank God for DVR, right? DVR really changed the game and stuff where, you know, especially on Sundays when we get to award season, they go so late.
Yeah, they do. And you know, I've worked just about every schedule in the news business. Overnights, mornings, evenings, weekends, weekend mornings, weekend nights, almost every schedule. And for a parent, I think this schedule, the morning schedule, is fabulous, especially if your kiddos are young.
That's true.
Because then I get to pick up my kids every day from school. And then we do dinner as a family, and our kids are really active in sports, like everybody else is. You know, your schedule just gets jammed.
Oh yeah, you get a little bit of everything. Now, when I was over working in Indiana,
I had the midnight, I had the graveyard, I had the midnight to 8 in the morning, and I was the photographer as well as the reporter. You know, it was the one-man band thing.
Right.
So it was always interesting. People says, oh, what did you cover? I said, oh, the same stuff. Fires or a stabbing, you know, or a gunshot, because that's all. Nothing happens good after midnight.
No, nothing. Remember what your grandma told you. She was right. Yeah, absolutely. So did you nap then on that schedule? You'd have to nap when you got home, got off of work at 8?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I nap for at least 2 hours too.
Yeah,
then.
absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's kind of a wild schedule, but we all kind of work with each other and help each other too. You know, we kind of keep each other awake, and it's a really good crew we have in the morning.
It really is.
Well, in the building, period. But because we see each other, sometimes we tell each other, hey, I don't really know you. Like, do we really know each other? Because when you're on 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night, you're a different human being than you are when you're on 8 hours of sleep
definitely.
a night. You know?
Yeah. That's so true. It's like when you're totally doing a different schedule, it's so hard to adjust that. But that's good that you get to kind of keep it the same.
Yeah, and then on Fridays and Saturdays, I try to stay up as long as I can.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure.
No more movies. I'm snoozing at the movie theaters by like 7:30 for sure.
And Celeste, while we were talking about the news, why don't we show you the biggest, this video that we had in today, really. This was the water.
San Antonio?
Yes, this was the water rescue out there, and boy, we got this video in about an hour and a half ago, and I just couldn't believe it when you see it.
Yeah.
You know, it just that is something where it's like, you shouldn't have even been that close to that rushing water. What are you doing, buddy?
Well, this is a really good image because earlier this morning when we were covering this live throughout our morning show, we of course can't control the images when it's live from our sister station in San Antonio, but now we can actually see the vehicle and the one man that was rescued from this car. I mean, this is unbelievable how much rain they've received there in San Antonio. Some of the statements that were coming from the fire chief there in San Antonio, one of them, he was saying there were 6 homes that were completely flooded, and so those families had to be evacuated. I mean, imagine that, you know. And this is a road. That's not an actual riverbed.
That's what's so amazing about it, and scary at the same time.
You know, when we were able to take a wider look, you see the close-up right here of the man being rescued from the vehicle and then the edge of the ladder. But, you know, the ladder is a ways out there. When you see it from a wider angle, which you'll see in a brief moment probably, you'll get to see how far this ladder is outstretched and reaches over the waters. And it gives you a real appreciation for the men and women who are both firefighters and police officers who really help us in these types of situations. I mean, it's scary. Look at this guy.
Yeah, see, I mean, that is just very tense situations.
And just in the nick of time. I mean, look how those waters are rising, and his car's nearly, you know, covered in water here.
And you know what's so great about seeing this video is look how nice and calm still the rescuers are. I mean, if it was me there, I'd be, you know, shaking that ladder so much.
Yeah, and I mean, the guy that's coming off and climbing on the ladder, I mean, he's you know, pretty calm considering what's going on, probably likely in shock.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so that's an amazing sight right there, and I'm so glad that they were able to get the people there. I mean, it started raining. They got 7 inches already, and we'll take you what it looks like right now. That's what they're still dealing with. It is still coming down in that area where right now they already have 7 inches. It's not going to get any better either, which is the scary part there.
And I believe the situation with San Antonio is that it's at the bottom of a valley, right? So they're surrounded by mountain ranges. So then, of course, you have a situation when those rains happen and you have an incredible amount of rain coming off those mountains. Well, where's it going to head? It's going to head right down into the valley.
Yes.
And then you have people, obviously, who live down there who are driving and working. And, of course, you know, school's either starting soon for them or already has. And so you have a situation like that these families are dealing with when these storms take place.
Yes, and for those of you just joining us, I'm joined by Celeste Rodriguez, and we're talking a little bit of everything today. We're talking about the morning show, and now getting into some of, unfortunately, what Texas is dealing with today. Not a good Monday for them.
No, and not easy. I mean, for the last couple of hours or so, we've been watching kind of how this storm has been circling over the city of San Antonio, and as it continues eastward. But the sheer amount of rain that they have received in such a short amount of time time. Not only is that water coming off the mountains into the valley, but think about it. When you have flooded ground here in the valley, and we see some of those flooded waterways. Here's another image here of a rescue taking place there in San Antonio. The water has nowhere to go.
No.
If the ground is already saturated, then when the water comes down, it's going to flood.
Absolutely, and that's the trouble spots, and that's what everyone's worried about there right now. Is we continue to take a look at this video that was so compelling. We have to show it one more time to everybody. Is definitely not what people wanted there in San Antonio today.
You know, and as the photojournalist is kind of situating the camera here in San Antonio, there's an area, a portion when we saw the vehicle probably about a few minutes ago or so, that the only thing stopping the vehicle, it looked like, from heading down with the water was the guardrail.
Yeah.
And so you think of those guardrails
Yes,
that we
that's a
have
good point.
on valley streets here, and you think, oh, well, it's protecting it from going over the edge or heading into that building or something like that. But say like water were to come down, that guardrail really protected that vehicle and stopped it in its tracks.
Yeah, that is so lucky, and wow, when you take a look at the overall here as a photographer wanting to get a different shot there, but interesting there as you see all the rescuers there as well. It's amazing.
Yeah. And here's a look at some of the folks, news crews there in San Antonio, as well as some of the other folks taking photographs and video, and you can see how saturated the ground is there, and then the water just continues to head downstream.
Yes, yeah, and we're still taking a look at the live Fox Vision right now, radar. We're still getting pummeled right now.
Think about the summer months as well there. We see obviously monsoon temperatures here and monsoon conditions in terms of humidity and dew point. But areas like San Antonio, even as farther east, you're showing Houston here on the far east portions, far right portions of your map, they see a lot of flooding there as well. And sometimes when these storms happen in the morning, it's later on in the afternoon when we start to see some of those live images of all the water kind of gathering in the roads or gathering in the neighborhoods. And so we're probably going to see some of that later on today.
Yeah, wow. Well, Celeste Rodriguez, thank you so much for coming by and offering up your insight.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Mike, great to thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
No problem. All right, folks, and for our viewers right now on Fox 10 Phoenix, we'll be back in just a second. And now we're taking a look at the Capitol here where, yep, they are getting rain as well, not just in Texas, but when we even took a look at the White House moments ago, yeah, the rain still coming down there.
But hi everybody, Mike Page here, going to be here with you as we get closer to the end here on Fox News Now. Hope everyone just is having a great afternoon. I do want to bring you to another story that we have been following. This coming out of Chicago, where today the Chicago Police Department, they put a new recruitment campaign together in hopes of trying to get some more officers there working the streets. So let's show you that press conference.
Our commitment to reinvigorating our training standards, incorporating 21st century policies, and hands-on scenario-based instruction. This will be bolstered by the state-of-the-art training facility recently announced by the mayor to give CPD the best trained officers in this country. And I'd like to take this opportunity right now to thank Mayor Emanuel and the members of the City Council that have given their unwavering support to make all of this possible, to ensure that we have the manpower necessary to carry out the changes we're making throughout the department, and also hold gun offenders accountable. We started our 2-year hiring campaign this year to add nearly 1,000 more members to the CPD. That means more officers, more detectives, more sergeants, and more lieutenants to prevent more crime, close more cases, and supervisors to make sure we do it all even more professionally. This hiring plan has been moving ahead nonstop. And to make sure we reach our hiring goals, we're opening police officer applications beginning August 15th, ahead of the next entrance exam, which will be held December 16th. This infusion of personnel will give us the resources we need to support our crime reduction strategy and provide superior service to every Chicagoan. It'll also help us work towards our goal of having a more diverse department that better reflects the makeup of the 77 communities that we serve. For those who decide to take the exam and ultimately follow through to become a police officer, you should know you're taking a sacred and respected oath to not only patrol your beat, but to make it better than when you got there. So I encourage you to apply and not be a bystander. Instead, be part of the change that's happening every day here in the city of Chicago. Visit cityofchicago.org/police application. Again, that's cityofchicago.org/police application. I'd also like to thank Will Calloway for standing up here. Also, President Daniels of Hales High School, the police officers that are standing with me today, and also Police Officer Victoria Mendoza. When you look at her, you see the resiliency of these police officers out here every day. She was shot about 3 weeks ago responding to an armed robbery. Yet she stands here with us today. This is the best of what Chicago has to offer, and we should not take those things lightly. I just want to really thank her for having the courage to not only be here, but the spirit that this young lady shows every day is just unwavering, and that's what CPD is all about. So now I'd like to first ask Deputy Chief Kevin Ryan to come up and share his experiences with being on CPD.
My name's Kevin Ryan. I'm Deputy Chief, Area Central. I've been on the police department 30 years. I am a 4th-generation police officer. My son is now a 5th-generation police officer. My family's been in the police department since 1893, continuously. I wouldn't have let my son go on to this job, and he's a classmate of Victoria. Had I thought it was not an honorable and a worthwhile profession in 30 years. I've never regretted it, no, one moment. It's highly rewarding, and I can't think of a better profession for somebody to go into that wants to give back and do something for society. Because even though with all the negativity we have today in the world about law enforcement, the job still needs to be done, and people still look for people to be there for them, and that's what our police officers do every day.
Thanks. Now we'll have some comments from Officer Victoria Mendoza.
Hello. As a child, I knew I wanted to be a police officer. So I grew up in the southwest side of Chicago. And something that I always wanted to do, I know my family was like, maybe not the best job for you. But I always did my own thing. So went to college, got my education, and when the testing came out, I said, okay, let me do it. Got in, and it's the best decision I've ever made. I love this job. Nothing's gonna stop me. I'll be right back out there serving my community, the communities that I'm from. So, best job I've ever taken. Oh, the whole thing? Okay. El trabajo de policía es algo que yo quería hacer desde yo estaba chiquita. So, yo sé que mi familia no quería que yo trabajara. ¿Me entiendes? My Spanglish. Yes. Okay. I keep going forward because I know this is the job that I wanted to do. And I know with any job or anything in life, there comes risk, whether you're police, whether you're just a civilian out in the street. I put on that uniform and I know I'm here to serve my community. And if it happened, I'm here to tell my story. I'm here to go back out there. I'm here to serve my community. And that I would never change that. This experience it was just something that I learned it could have happened to anybody. Now in Spanish, my Spanglish. What was the question again? It's like, okay. Este trabajo es un trabajo que me encanta de hacer. Yo sé que esto pasó 3 semanas, pero nada se cambia en mi mente. Me gusta trabajar con la gente, me gusta trabajar en las calles. It's looking like I'm going to have a full recovery based on the doctors, what they've told me, and I'm going to follow the strict orders. They don't know a timeline because it varies person to person. An estimate of a common recovery time is about 12 months, but we'll see in time because I feel like I'm recovering faster, but I'm going to follow what my doctor says. Yeah.
Okay, next we'll have some comments from Police Officer Brandy Wright.
Hello, I'm Officer Wright. I have been a police officer now for 11 years. Prior to becoming the police, I worked in social services, service in the community, providing different resources. And one thing that I would notice from the community, or what I would hear often, the disdain for police officers, the distrust of officers, and overall just the negative stigma that kind of came with being the police. It was at that moment that I decided that I would answer the call and be the change that I wanted to see. It became almost like a challenge for me to show the community that, in fact, officers can be trusted. You can have interactions with police officers that are positive. They can come into the community and serve the citizens and provide the safety needs for everybody. And I also wanted to show women and people like myself that you can do this job and succeed in it very well. I took the oath 11 years ago.
All right, folks, we do want to break in here and just give you a breaking news update that a verdict has been reached in the sentencing phase of a Valley woman convicted of killing her young cousin. The jury deciding that Samantha Allen will be sentenced to death. Allen was convicted of first-degree murder and child abuse charges in the 2011 death of Amy Deal. The young girl suffocated when she was left locked in a trunk on a So we had that breaking news update here for you as we continue to bring it to you. Once again, if you're just joining us here, a verdict has been reached in the sentencing phase of a Valley woman convicted of killing her young cousin. The young girl suffocated when she was left locked in a trunk on a hot night as a punishment for taking popsicles. Alan's husband is being tried separately. So that was just the latest alert that came right across our tables here at the News Now desk. We're going to continue to update you, and for any more additional details, always head on over to fox10phoenix.com. And the verdict has been reached in the sentencing phase of that Valley woman convicted of killing her young cousin. And for more, always news and updates, you could always head on over then, starting at the top of this hour, to Fox 10 News at Noon. That's coming up in the next couple of minutes here. All right, folks, we're going to continue the live stream coverage right here on fox10phoenix.com. We will now take you back right now to that CPD press conference.
The superintendent achieve that goal in the future. Cool.
Well, the last couple of years, we've been holding at least 2 exams a year. So we're keeping up with attrition. The hiring plan is on pace, but we're always looking forward, so in anticipation of filling more vacancies. So this isn't anything that we weren't already anticipating. This is something that goes hand in hand with the hiring plan. From the last one, we're just starting to go through that list now. So we had like roughly 8,700 candidates. So why not have a pool of people that's ready to go when we burn through that list? So we just want to ensure that we keep up, that we have enough applicants to always place in these positions as they become available. We haven't started burning through it yet. We're getting there. Yes. Just starting. I just answered that question because we always want to ensure that we have, you know what, friend, I'll tell you this. When I talk to my colleagues across the country, much to the chagrin of the media, they're having problems recruiting people. We're not seeing that in Chicago, and hopefully we won't. And I got to tell you, like I told Will Calloway, when we were having a conversation, the fact of it is this. CPD should reflect the demographics of this city. They should. And if we're going to get there, we have to ensure that we have a viable pool of people to constantly pull from. I cannot put black and brown officers in those communities that's asking for them if I don't have those people within CPD. So this is just another layer to ensure that we have those viable candidates. No, we'd have to talk to Chief West about that. We can get that for you, though. I don't have those numbers, but I'm sure we can get that for you. Well, I can tell you this. I don't have the exact numbers in my head from the last time, but we went from about somewhere about 35 to 40% minorities applying for the test about 2 years ago. And when we did that extensive hiring campaign, what we found out was this. One of the mistakes that we made was that when we recruited people, we did it the way my generation is accustomed to getting information, through the alderman's office, city hall, and things of that nature. But the young folks now, they tweet, Instagram, Facebook, and all those things, the social media aspect. So we were very aggressive in that, and that bumped up the minority applicants to 71%. So I think we're heading in the right direction. Hopefully this next time around we'll get a large percentage again, because again, we can't put officers of color into those districts that are begging for it if we don't have those people in CPD. It's impossible. No, so we have to wait until there's a process. So we have to wait till their extradition hearings are completed. From what I'm being told, they're not going to, at least the professor is going to waive his extradition rights. So if that's the case, then they'll probably be in Chicago sometime later this week. At that point, then our detectives will get to interview them, and then we'll move forward this time. Well, it impacts us because we use that money to buy critical equipment like police cars, computers, radios, and things of that nature. Now, just think about this for a moment. We have a very aggressive hiring plan right now where we want to put 1,000 more police officers on the street in a couple of years. Those officers are going to need equipment. They're going to need vehicles to ride in. If we don't get that money, and we're talking over $3 million, then it'll impact public safety. And I got to tell you, I've been a cop for almost 30 years. I've done nothing but dedicate my life to keeping this city safe. And I just don't think you should play politics with public safety. We have an obligation to keep the people of this city safe. For them to try to put the police in the middle of this is just, it's not right. It's not right. We have a job to do. I understand the federal immigration officers have a right to do it too. But with CPD and in all local jurisdictions across this country, we need people to give us information regarding crimes, or if they're a victim of a crime. What we do is investigate the reason that you called us. That's what we investigate. For us to hold people for an additional 48 hours to contact federal authority, that's just wrong. First of all, it's illegal. We have 48 hours to hold people. Whatever we need to get done has to be done within that 48 hours. And if it's not, then we let them go. That's the law. And I refuse to put these police officers in a position where they can get sued because we're breaking the law. We're not going to do that. We're looking at it. We don't want to relax the standards too much, but we don't want to, if you did something silly when you were 16, 17 years old, and it's a minor offense, we don't want to hold that against you for the rest of your life. So we're still looking at that.
You're still looking at it, but you haven't done it.
Correct.
And that was the Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson taking reporters' questions there about a new campaign announcement that they put out for their recruitment abilities. And obviously they want more police there on the streets in Chicago to try to combat some of the bloodshed that is being there pretty much every weekend. You guys are watching the Fox 10 News Now stream, part of fox10phoenix.com.
All right, everybody. Hope you guys are all having a great day. Mike Pace here. Going to be here with you for the next hour on the Fox 10 and News Now stream. We'll get through some of these top stories as well. We do want to bring you in full now. The Senator Blumenthal press conference, and as they are squaring away with President Trump. Let's take you there right now.
Bipartisan group of colleagues, 2 Republicans, 4 Democrats, on last Thursday. Protecting Robert Mueller's independence is vital to his credibility and capability to uncover the truth about criminality at the highest levels. The Russian meddling in the 2016 election, potential